Standards, dear boy. Standards. That man. Put on a tie. Dear standards these days.
Hello and welcome to the show, Colourful Conversations with Mark and Pete. This is the show dedicated to religion, politics and business. Well, this week we discuss how to dress for success. Well, I must admit, listeners, that I am sitting here now absolutely distraught at the news suddenly announced by the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, that members of Parliament no longer need to wear ties. Yes, folks, I know that this is terrible, but it sends out a clear message, in my opinion, that standards are slipping. Now, clergyman Pete, I know that you're sitting there, as we are, in formal attire here with our penguin suits on. And, of course, this is, what we consider to be perfectly normal.
Yes, I mean, people question us. Why do Mark and Pete wear full evening attire with a black tie and a dinner jacket to record? Well, it's standards. Standards. When one is broadcasting, one does have to have certain standards. And of course, in my other job, obviously this is my main job, but my part-time job as a vicar, I wear a collar. It's not a tie, but it's a sort of formal collar. So it's done up at the neck, and then there's a white band around it. So it's a similar.
You should be done by the neck.
Yeah. Well, it's a similar idea, I guess. Although I remember in a church I was serving in a few years ago when I switched from wearing a clerical collar to wearing a tie. Someone asked me, "Why have you done that?" And I said, "Well, I'm raising standards of dress in the church." The reason for doing it, well, it's too long to go into it here. It was the style of service. It was suited better by not wearing clerical garb, but I still wore a tie. So it's interesting that this idea of having something just round the neck, making it look neat, there's something about it that makes you more businesslike. And when you remove that, you're removing your standards, aren't you?
Well, I think you are, and I think there's a number of reasons why this signal of perhaps removing a tie suggests that maybe you have compromised in some way. Now, I'm just going to set up a theme here. Perhaps the school of thought isn't always in line with the Mark and Pete thought here. This is a little poem called The Naked Truth. The smart tie I wear is simply there to fill space around my neck. And when I holler, it squeezes my collar to keep my voice in check. My skin-tight shirts help me exert a great manly muscly chest. When I bulge my top, the buttons pop as I look quite distressed. My stripy trousers stop the browsers from looking at my knees. The zip is slack, and it has a knack of falling when I sneeze. So I wear a belt to keep me svelte, wrapped around my waist. When I pull too tight with all my might, my belly cannot be traced. My underwear includes woolly socks, though very itchy on my feet. It quickly shows when I rub my toes by producing excessive heat. In leather shoes I start to snooze, dreaming ways to step and stamp. Then a sudden feeling sends me reeling, leaving me with the cramp. It's perfectly normal to dress so formal, of which there's no dispute, but I prefer to dispose all of my clothes and wear my birthday suit.
Oh. Yes.
So why don't we just abandon all clothes and just go with the naked truth? I mean, at the end of the day, are we being a little bit too precious with the idea of a tie? Or maybe the fact that we're trying to hold on to tradition? Because let's be honest, having a tie traditionally suggests that you are more formal, you're setting a standard, and you have a respect for the person that you're presenting to or that you're meeting. Surely there's two schools of thought here. Which way are we going on this one?
Well, I'd like to take your suggestion. I know meant not entirely seriously of just wearing nothing. Now that
Exactly.
wouldn't. Now what I'm considering is the fact that that would, by almost everyone, for most MPs certainly, be considered unsuitable. Now,
Oh.
if that's the case, all you're arguing about is the amount of covering up you do. So if everyone agrees, well, they should be covered up to a certain extent, they should at least wear their underpants, and then you're only arguing about a region of degree. It's not like some people are saying, well, it really doesn't matter what you wear; you could wear nothing. People don't think that. They might say it doesn't matter what you wear, but that's not true, is it? We've just shown that that's not true by the way that underpants are required. So, that being said, then it's possible, of course, to insist on a certain standard. Now, when it comes to the tie, it does make a big difference. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable, of course. People think of it being uncomfortable, but that's simply if you buy the wrong size shirt. If the shirt is too tight around the neck, obviously that's going to make you uncomfortable. You buy one where you could. I'm just demonstrating, dear listener, gentle listener, to Mark, who can see very clearly that I can fit my finger down between the collar and my neck. This isn't because I've got a particularly thin neck; it's because I bought a shirt big enough. So that's not that's simply an excuse. That's simply an excuse. You see, it being uncomfortable. I don't believe it has to be uncomfortable at all. So why the move in that direction? Well, I think it's partly fashion, in that there has been a fashion of not wearing a suit, not wearing a tie, but still wearing a suit. Now the question would remain: this not wearing ties, does this mean that a suit is still required? I'm not quite clear as to what the requirements are.
This is where I think it gets. I'm going to suggest something here, which is that whilst I understand that perhaps there is a fashion, and I'm going to say that in business I have noticed a trend that Europeans, for example, typically in business, do wear ties, particularly when they're addressing, say, a client, or they're doing a formal presentation somewhere at a seminar or a conference. Americans, for example, typically tend not to wear as many ties. They tend to be what was described as, say, a smart casual. So they might wear a jacket, smart trousers, or they might wear, formal shoes, but they don't tend to wear a tie. There are always exceptions, of course.
Well, that's a different culture.
It's a cultural thing. And of course, moving into Europe, what I have noticed, though, is that this trend, this American influence, seems to be growing. Now, I'm wondering here that my fear with, and it might seem flippant here, that by not having a tie, at the end of the day, it shouldn't, in theory, make any difference whether you're wearing a tie or a T-shirt or anything else for that matter, because at the end of the day, it's about the person who's making the decisions. But the one thing I will say is that it does tend to change your attitude towards someone. So here's a point in as an example. A tie itself does show that the person has made an effort to respect you. So if you're coming to the table in a meeting and somebody turns up with a tie, they clearly respect you. Somebody turning up in a T-shirt, you don't respect them. The other thing as well, and it might seem also slightly superficial, but I think is a measure of the person, and that is that their choice of tie shows whether they're fashionable, whether they have any kind of sartorial elegance. So you're building up the picture and the character of the person. By debasing that, by everybody just turning up in casual wear, and I say that in the loosest sense, because obviously if you're not wearing a tie, you're not as formal. So I think that this idea, this move that we've seen, we're breaking tradition in say, Parliament, this is opening more ways in which perhaps I think that standards will slip.
Yes.
And I definitely see that in business. And the reason is that I've also seen a lot of other slack things in terms of people not turning up to meetings on time or not delivering on time, etc. Now, I know that these won't necessarily relate to wearing a tie, but I've seen an erosion effectively of the disciplines. This is just, in my opinion, one small effort to break tradition. I don't have a problem with that. But what I do think is in your mindset, you are not perhaps putting a formal mindset in place. Just simply turning up in your gardening gear to your client, I don't think really shows any form of respect. So I think it is about respect and discipline.
Yeah, well, I think within a business, for example, you could say to people, just dress smart and just see how they respond. Just talking about
for a business, and typically somebody's idea of smart is just a smart T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, that's one way of doing it.
It's a good idea.
I mean, that's one way that people approach this. I've noticed, you see, the different culture in the US. It seems to be, never having been there, and I don't have that much experience in business, but people in a business-like environment seem to think that, well, wearing slacks and then like a polo shirt but tucked in, that's neat. To me, that's just casual and looks a bit silly with the shirt tucked in. But I mean, that's just my opinion. But that's the culture of the of a particular. Maybe it's only a particular part of the US. I don't know. But what we're talking about really, when we're talking about this relaxing of the dress code for MPs in Parliament, is the relaxing of the dress code. We're not really talking about what the MPs want to do. Say, for example, you've got all the MPs. Some of them love wearing suits and like to wear ties. Some of them, perhaps many of them, prefer not to and wouldn't wear them if it weren't for the code. It's the relaxing of the code that I think is the problem, not whether you want to wear them when some people break the code. In fact, you're removing the opportunity of someone being a bit of a maverick and having his tie loosened or something, because you're saying you don't have to wear them at all. You've removed the standard, so someone can't try and stretch it or bend it. But it's not what they want to wear, it's what you expect them to wear. It's the expectation of a certain formality. And so it's showing that you believe that Parliament is an important place where things should be taken seriously. The individual MPs may flout the laws occasionally or bend them, but at least have the law there to show that you take it seriously. That's what I think is the tie is not the individual person wearing the tie that's important here. In this particular case, what we're talking about is setting a standard. What's expected is that people will take this so seriously that they have to look formal and wear a tie. I think if you it's the change from formality to informality. What else goes along with that? The various other changes. Now, I think we ought to address one other side of this that could be the motive behind it. I don't know if it is, but it could be that with the influence of different cultures coming into Britain, where a tie isn't necessarily the standard of dress when someone being formal, and it could be not only other cultures but a mix of the genders. Here on the Mark and Pete show, we believe that there are only two genders, and of course, but everyone has an agenda. But so obviously, women are not expected to wear a tie because women are different to men.
Well, indeed. But I want to come back to this point about how to dress for success. So I would like to also take the other viewpoint, as you quite rightly say. If I look at people in business, it's interesting that those are the higher echelons of commerce. Interestingly, don't always wear a tie. So if I look at somebody such as Mark Zuckerberg or, say, Richard Branson, I'm not saying that we can't find a photo of them wearing a suit and tie, but it's rare that we actually see them wearing something so formal. Now, these, of course, are probably some of the wealthiest business people on the planet, and they've clearly proven their acumen and they've added value in their chosen professions. But they don't wear a tie. Now, I guess that maybe this trend that we're seeing with the new entrepreneurs is such that that's partly one of the reasons why, when you look to those exponents of business, you tend to look at the top, don't you? And you think, well, if they're not wearing a tie, then perhaps you don't need to. But what I would say is that they are in a very, very small category because not everyone is as successful as those individuals. But one thing I will say is that it does separate individuals from business to social And what I mean by that is that by clearly having a suit and a tie, you're clearly in a business mode. And depending on the type of suit and depending on the type of tie, because we've talked about evening wear and there's many other forms of ties, because we haven't even mentioned bow ties, etc. And there are many, and cravats. I mean, dare I say, I have a thing about that. I am always suspicious of somebody who wears a cravat, but that's another story. But the fact is, having a tie, in my opinion, just shows that you are somebody who has made the effort, shows that you're a standard. I mean, a teacher, for example, I must admit that when I was at school, not all of the teachers wore ties, but I tended to respect those who did wear the tie. I seem to sort of have more regard for those who were more formally dressed. Those who were more casually dressed, I just thought, well, couldn't be bothered. And I was probably right most of the time. So I'm still an advocate for wearing a tie. I know it doesn't sit with everybody. It just seems like a pointless piece of paraphernalia. But I definitely respect somebody more for coming to a meeting who has made the effort.
Well, I think that I think this would be a subject for a whole new show. Maybe we should talk about wearing a suit, the sort of suit, and which tailor to go to. What sort of style. Well, I think that having a made-to-measure suit, as always used to be the case in the past, does show that you've made that extra effort and actually makes you look better. So, maybe it's not just the MPs and certain practices in business, but maybe we've all become so slipshod that we need to take stock and just up our standards of dress. But we want to see people walking down the street in properly tailored suits. We don't want to see them just slobbing about.
Top hats. What happened to the top hat?
Well, exactly. Whatever happened to? I mean,
and the bowler hat.
Well, you see, standards. I think wearing a hat. Of course, that seems to have gone out with the the popularity of the motor car. Of course, when you had to travel around, it was natural to wear a hat if you had to travel around and walk most places and take public transport. But with everyone having a car, then I suppose wearing a hat is just inconvenient. But that doesn't stop you wearing a suit. Now, the question is, what do you think about your representative not wearing a tie? I mean, the other side of this is that an MP represents a particular constituency.
Exactly.
They're going out wearing a tie, and so not wearing a tie, they're saying, I'm representing you, but I don't really care what I look like. I'm not addressing to the standards of dress that are traditional in this country. It gives the idea that they don't really care about you. They're not really representing you to the best of their ability. So I think it is a mistake to reduce this particular standard. Instead, I think it would make more sense to actually insist on a higher standard because of the tendency, the pull of society to reduce these standards. It'd be better to set a higher standard so that people are called to that higher standard.
I would say that one of the things that also is noted as a result of this particular initiative, some people are concerned also that some well-known spokespeople have talked about that this whole idea of removing either the tie or even possibly a suit is like a dumbing it down of standards. So people, for example, even in other professions, wear the powdered wig through, say, the legal profession. Removing that suggests that there's a less formality. But again, that symbol of the wig, effectively wearing the wig as a lawyer or somebody who's on the bench, basically. If you've got a judge, for example, they clearly stand out as a symbol of authority and you respect them for what they are. Now, the other thing is there is an irony here, because I'll take this, what might seem to be a little bit superficial, but if you take entertainment, we talk about how to dress as success, but when we look at Hollywood and we see, say, for example, the Oscars, look at how people dress. They are dressed in their most premium outfits that you can possibly buy, jewelry, ties, suits, etc. And so that's actually, again, showing a reflection of their success and a standard.
Yes.
They don't turn up in torn jeans and a T-shirt. So ironically, even in certain professions, it's almost accepted that you will be wearing something very, very formal and something that is of a higher class.
Yes. Is Parliament worth less of an effort than the red carpet? That's I think, the question that this throws up. And I think the answer is, well, it's not treated as such. It's almost treated. A standard of debate there does seem sometimes to be lacking, but on occasions it's very high standard. It's not generally just a reduction in the standard of debate in Parliament, but it is the slippery slope. Not wearing a tie means that people are not going to adhere to the highest standards. Not because there's a definite one-to-one relationship. You don't wear a tie, you're generally slipshod. But it's the announcement that it's no longer being required signals a slipshod attitude to Parliament.
Yes.
Bring back the tie, get some formality back, and we might even, I think, have to bring back the starched collar.
Oh, wonderful. I like the idea of the starched collar. Very excellent. Listeners, what do you think about this situation? I mean, do you believe that perhaps our standards are actually being undermined by the very nature of removing the idea of MPs and members of parliaments effectively to not have something as formal as a tie? Or are we being perhaps a little bit too traditionalist? Why not let us know? Follow us at Mark and Pete, or join us and follow us on our website at www.markandpete.com. And why not let us give your thoughts? We would love to hear from you. So join us again next time for some high standards and some very formal conversations with Mark and Pete.
You can take the frock coat off now.
Thank you.